I'm going to give it a few minutes. Have more people come on here. And then we're going to jump right into it. I have a confession to make to y'all. And I really hope you don't follow in my footsteps, because remember that I'm just a man. Please don't follow me. I promised myself for my birthday I was going to quit these. So for those of you who don't know, years and years ago, in the Volume 2 era, that's true, during the Volume 2 era, I used to smoke cigarettes. It's a nasty habit. I'm quitting for my birthday, which is in 2 weeks. California shows. Oh yeah, I got that. California shows are coming up in May. Yeah, Diego, you know what it is though? I'm gonna be real with you. Maybe a week after Chino died, I just started smoking these. Someone wrote, Jeff Weiss, I'm a Trump supporter and I come in peace. We all know Kamala was the wrong candidate. Who do you think would have beat Trump? Well, I'll be honest with you, Jeff. You're not in the wrong place. I mean, he's definitely the wrong guy, and she was definitely the wrong woman. But I think this is the problem. You're talking to an individual that thinks the presidency is compromised. Period. No matter who's in there. Okay, let's jump into it. So one of the things that people were hitting me up a lot about, as a person that didn't support Trump or didn't support Kamala, are about the deportations, but something specifically about them. They wanted me to comment on the amount of people who thought that they were not going to be deported, and so they supported Trump as immigrants. Maybe they couldn't vote, but they were vocally supportive of Trump. Listen, we're just getting started here. It's going to be a long night. So let me break this down. In Latin America, before people come here, there are a lot of reasons why they choose right-wing politics. There's an anti-communist impulse. There's actually a book called The Anti-Communist Impulse that was talking about how Latin America and Africa shared a very similar story, in that every time there's a takeover or a dictatorship, it's done to protect people from communism. It's such a familiar story that it's still going on right now. As a matter of fact, in El Salvador, there's a dictatorship from a person that claimed that they were going to be standing against communism. So I know that IG is hiding this. We're shadow banned. Fine. The reason that a lot of people come here with that attitude is for several reasons. One, they want to do something to assimilate, and still considering themselves an immigrant wouldn't be assimilation. Two, we'll get into all of these. Someone wrote, Bukele's a good guy. Listen, I'm not going to argue with people who don't know anything about politics about that, right? 100%. That there's no arguing with someone that knows nothing about politics, who says, oh, I just like that guy, or he's based, or he's the GOAT. You have nothing to back that up. What are you going to do? Spit a sentence and then jump off my live? Oh, he stopped crime. So did Pinochet, right? So did Fujimori. So did Mussolini. As a matter of fact, they used to have a joke about Mussolini. They said, man, that when he came to Italy, he made the trains run on time. My father was in a right-wing dictatorship, lived under one. And he said that the thing that happens is that for the first year or two, you get an incredible amount of efficiency, right? An incredible amount of efficiency. Things that you had no idea could happen. Like imagine construction. Seems to take forever, right? Nah. You guys got 3 days to build this shit, and it better be up to code. Now, what happens little by little is that those people who love free speech are slowly coddled to be against it. So the reason that they do so, right? The reason that they get upset is because they can't change their opinion. Like if you confront a conservative Latino and you say, "Oh, look at these deportations. I bet you're really happy with yourself now." Their response is not going to be, "Oh, I just changed my mind. You radically altered the way I exist." No. They're going to say, "Yeah, I'm very proud of that." You know what it takes to make a person change their politics? You might as well be changing their gender. It's very hard to admit when you're wrong. Now, what happens more and more under a dictatorship is that you get to criticize the government much less. So all of this talk about, oh man, we're against not being able to voice our opinion. Well, that's the second part that's going to come. Do you think that you can call Bukele a piece of garbage in his own country? Look, let's be fair. There are plenty of other countries where you can't do that, right? There are plenty of other countries. How about this, brother? Let's go to Singapore, right? In Singapore, let's be fair to El Salvador. In Singapore, you can't call the king a piece of shit. In Saudi Arabia, you can't call the king a bitch and not have consequences for it, right? So what happens? These free thinkers on the right that were supporting a dictatorship, what happened to them in Chile and Peru and all these other countries? Well, eventually, they had to go with the flow. You see, they were already tied to right-wing politics, and so their excuse immediately became, well, we're protecting the country from radicals, but you've become the radical. And not the radical in a way that bucks the system. You become radically part of the system. Also, listen, we can go back and forth arguing about whether Trump or Biden was going to be better for this or that. The foreign policy doesn't change based on the presidency. It changes based on what the Pentagon wants the president to do. Okay? So we all knew, let me take my glasses off for this. All of us in this room knew that the war in Ukraine was not sustainable. There's no way for the Ukraine to invade Russia and win. It was a war of attrition to make them realize it's going to cost you more than you can possibly afford to take this country. But the United States got most of its objectives, and I'll break down what their objectives were. Before 9/11, the United States and Russia shared control of the Middle East in the weapons trade and in the influence that they had. And people thought, oh, after Bush invaded the Middle East because we elected Obama, he's going to make a radical change. But that's not what happened. After he came in, he cemented what Bush had done, right? So what is Trump going to do? You think his policy was automatically going to be different on Gaza? No. He just made Biden do the killing. But if Trump was in power, he would have done the same thing. Mr. Obama knocked over 8 countries. 8 countries. And during the war in Ukraine, right, what happened? So many resources were diverted there that it enabled the Russians to come back and take their troops out of Syria to refocus on Ukraine, and the Americans moved in. Let's talk about what the Americans wanted in the Middle East, right? The Americans wanted Gaza in the fold. They didn't want the Palestinians gone. Remember, they want people to fight for them. This is what a lot of people don't understand about America. America will fuck you up and then pick you up and put you on the front line. I'm going to say that again for people who didn't hear me. America will fuck you up, right? Then pick you back up and put you on the front line. And I'll make some comparisons so you understand. Right now, America's biggest competitor, we would say, is China. But that wasn't the case 75 years ago. Because 75 years ago, we dropped a nuclear weapon on Japan, right? Japan should have nothing to do with us. If you dropped a nuclear weapon twice on my country, what the fuck? And yet, who's our biggest political partner against China right now? Japan. Right? We used to have beef with the Germans for years. Then who's our number one partner in Europe? Germany. Do you understand that? Someone wrote White Claw Poppy. Listen, man, I do this to show love. I do these lives to talk about what's going on in the world. Because that's what people want to hear. But it doesn't surprise me at all that Biden did the ethnic cleansing and Trump is going to solidify stealing the land. So, there we are. By the way, I just announced some new shows. I'll be performing some new music. And I appreciate everyone that's been with me on this journey. Sometimes these lives are just me talking to you. And sometimes they're me having a conversation with other people. Sometimes I prefer having a conversation with other people so you can see a more fluid exchange. But sometimes I just have to break it down for you guys. To go back to this deportation issue and certain Latinos that care nothing for immigration or that's not even their issue, you have to understand in Latin America, when people say, oh, those people think that they're white. Hold on. Let's deal with that for a second. I see that a lot, not just from black people, but from other Latinos. They say, oye, se creen blanquitos. You guys think that you're white. Here's the reality. Some of these people are darker than me, and they would like to be white. Sure. Whatever. They have this self-hating complex. But there's another group of Latin Americans that are... I know this is hard for Americans to understand, but in their own country, they are white. Do you understand? In their own country, they're white. They got all the benefits and privileges of that. And if you think that that's a lie, do me a favor, go to the favelas. I was talking to the dude from Brazil the other day, and I was asking him about the scams that they pull. And he was saying, well, you know, when we grew up in the favelas, this is what we did. We would get like the most light-skinned white dude to hail cars, right? And pull them over, and people would get robbed. Why would they stop? Well, they're not going to stop, but he said for a bunch of them, they're going to stop for someone who they think looks innocent and is not going to cause them problems. And that's how we used to rob people, Felipe. And I said, oh, wow. Okay. So, sure, I'm not saying because you're white, in Latin America, you're automatically going to have a good life. But in Latin America, there are such things as people who consider themselves white. They might not be fully white. They might not look like a Swedish person, like a German individual. But for all intents and purposes, they think they're white. And everyone's talked to them like they're white. And I don't just mean Argentina or Chile. I mean, you can find these people in Peru. You can find them in Brazil. You can find them in Ecuador, in Panama, in Colombia, and in Mexico. You can find them all over the place. And some of those people, those Euro Hispanics, have come here to America and they've continued the problem. Well, yeah, I am white. I'm not like those people. So really, it's not a delusion for them. It's them carrying over the Latin American caste system and bringing it here. There's also something to be said about why ICE is only targeting Latinos, or a lot of people feel like they are, because we're the biggest existential threat to this country in its identity. We remind people. Listen, if back in the day your grandfather raped a woman, right, and she had a baby and she refused to abort it, and all of a sudden you got rich off of that lady's land, you might be ashamed of the kid that you made. You might be ashamed of the kid that you created, that has every right to everything that you have. Maybe that's why they don't want to look at us. I know that's not the reason. I could come up with a lot of existential, right-wing, left-wing reasons. Anything that that I've heard from right-wingers is nothing new. Right? It's the same recycled garbage that I've heard a million times. And by the way, liberals did nothing to stop it because they don't care. They're not revolutionaries. They're a center-right party. Liberalism is not Diet Coke socialism. Please don't think that. They're not even the same liquid. They're not made from the same substance. Someone wrote, "Do you have writer's block? Please talk about the process. My drunk uncle talks politics." Yeah, but I'm a lot smarter than your drunk uncle, right? And actually, what's crazy is that you're on here commenting about what I should be doing, when really you should be going and getting your drunk uncle some fucking help, right? Unless you just made him up because you really wanted to say that to me, which means that you need help, right? It's not your uncle that needs help, motherfucker. It's you that need help. Listen, man, I get it. When alcohol does its taxes every year, it claims your uncle as a dependent. But that's not my fault. You're talking about your drunk uncle. I'm trying to help your drunk uncle. We need to find your drunk fucking uncle a 12-step program so that he doesn't end up abusing your aunt and your cousins don't have to sleep on that air mattress in your fucking basement that's haunted by the nigga your dad killed. That's crazy. Now we've just gone down a rabbit hole that you didn't even want me to touch. You've been haunted your whole life, homie, by the person that your father killed and buried in the fucking basement. Listen, man, I do this for a living, brother. I'm sorry. I do this for a living. So I love you guys, man. Thank you for the laughter and the humor. You know, sometimes when all your friends die and crazy shit happens, you lose hope. And I'm just glad that I get to laugh with you guys, you know? I tell you what, homie, call me when your uncle gets sober. All right? Love you. I got a birthday show coming up for the people that don't know. It's posted right now on my page. For those of you that want to check it out, go to my page. Please leave a like and a comment there. February 19th, SOBs. Myself, Lord Finesse, hosted by Poison Pen. Special guest, Graham Poobah. A bunch of other MCs are coming out. A lot of people. It's definitely going to be a Tim Boots and Shirling night. If you want me to post this, I'll post it, man. Hey, man, listen, it was just a joke, White Claw. I honestly, all jokes aside, I really want the best for your uncle and your family. God bless him. You know what I mean? I'm just making jokes. You see, I didn't say anything about his mom or anybody's moms. I'm not talking about anything. I respond to jokes. I feel like as an elder, I should be a lot more understanding with people. And there are a couple of situations in which, as of late, I've had to say, hey, man, that wasn't right. That's not how you talk to kids, man. You got to teach people with love, man. You can't scream at people if you want them to do something for you. Anyway, man, I love you guys. Someone said, do you consider yourself a shaman? What? What? A shaman? Like a priest of Rolar? What? Let me just comment on something. Back in the day, there were a lot of white people, and to be fair, people from other places, not just Europe, who were coming to Peru and were taking ayahuasca because they thought it would stop them from smoking crack or taking heroin or you know what I mean? Like dealing with their inner problems. Now, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Ayahuasca is not a recreational drug, right? Ayahuasca is what certain indigenous tribes used to do to look at their lineage and see if there was some evil that connected there, that they needed to atone for. Do you understand? So when you, like, that's where they got the idea of the water of life from Dune. You see your ancestors. Now, let me ask you something. If you're taking ayahuasca and one of your great-great-grandparents raped your great-great-grandmother, do you want to see that? No. I don't either. But here's the fucked up part about that. You don't get a choice. You have to see it now. You have to see horrible things that have happened in the past. So do me a favor. Before you go on the next spiritual guru trip, take it from a shaman. Don't do that. Unless you're mentally prepared for a mind fuck of a lifetime. Oh, man. I'll answer some questions from serious people now. Technique, would you ever do a track with Tech 9? Yeah, I've done plenty of shows with him. He's a cool cat. I never had a problem with him. Seems like a good brother. Always respectful, kind, generous whenever I seen him. Anything else? Let me see. The Great Disclosure. Good morning from Syria. Good morning, too. How are you doing? Syria. Well, that was a really, really good chess game the United States played. Focus on the Ukraine. But you do realize there's no way they can allow Syria to succeed as a nation. They have to cut it to pieces. It's a shame. What they're going to do is claim that all these, and this is going to be the line, just so you understand it. The line is going to be that all of those lines were drawn at the end of World War I. Therefore, they're not legitimate. They were drawn by the British government. So the south of Syria will be carved off, the goal line on a little piece more, and it's going to go to Israel. The northern part of Syria, the Turks believe it's theirs because they held it for way longer than anyone else. They held that part of Syria for, I want to say, the better part of 750 years. So they're going to come reclaim it. As for the actual Syrian people, what happened? Someone said, avoids all real questions about his music. Why didn't you drop something during the Obama administration? I did. It was called The Martyr, bro. You're confused. You were about to ask me why I didn't drop something during the Trump administration. Anything else? You're really stumping me with that one, bro. Oh my God. I never get over how dumb some people are. Like, do you think that question stumped me, bro? Oh my God, what am I going to do? I got to replan my whole life. Man. Wait, the question is that you're trying to insinuate that somehow I never criticized Obama for any of his actions? We spent the first half of this live doing that. Yeah, you're not smart because you like Obama. And you're definitely not smart because you like Trump. You're smart when you understand what role these people have in our society. I'm going to break something else down for you. Dictatorship is actually a legal position to have in a republic. Did you know that? Dictatorship, I'm going to say that again for people. Dictatorship is actually a legal position to have in government. It's when the government and the people are under such deadly conditions. There's some extreme emergency that you cannot allow things to be decided in a committee. There's an example of a person like this in Rome, and I'm not talking about Caesar, right? Before him, a few hundred years, 150, there was an invasion of Gauls into Rome, and dictatorial powers were given to a man, and he defeated the Gauls. And then after the war, he came down and knelt and gave his sword to the Senate. And we have a city named after him here in America, right? And that city is called Cincinnati, named after Consul Cincinnatus. But that's actually very rare because most people who take power through dictatorial means never return it to the Senate. Now, on the other side, since dictatorship is always associated now with right-wing dictatorships, all this other stuff, okay, let's go all the way left. Nationalization is not communism. No. Nationalization is the effective measure that a terrible deal was done. For example, the natural resources that this country gets from other places are because of the deals that they've made in the previous administration. Oh yeah, you can take this much sulfur, or you can come into the Congo and take this much iron or tin. You just have to pay these taxes. And these people never pay these taxes. They give kickbacks to the people that are in control. And if you realize that your country has this predatory relationship with another country, you're within your right to say, hey, man, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't like that deal. I'm not selling you nickel for nothing. You got to pay your taxes. You got to pay me. You got to pay the government for what you take out. Because it's not your country. What can you say about becoming a naturalized citizen? I became a citizen when I was about 17 years old. And it was a process. Before that, if I got arrested, they would be like, we can deport you if you want to. But that was never a thing back then. You had to do something crazy to get deported. Nowadays, motherfuckers walking around on people's doors. You don't like someone, right? This guy fucked your girl in high school. You calling ICE on him. This is where it's gotten. And I think that the problem is that the right wing only has two ways to debate this. If you don't agree with them completely, they say, oh, you're for open borders. You don't believe in a state. You don't believe in this. Or when you remind them that they're not Native American, oh, that was 100 years ago. That was 500 years ago. Like, I've heard it all. Matter of fact, I'll tell you what, I'm impressed when I hear something I've never heard before, because I usually hear the same thing. These aren't competent arguments, and they only work when you have a studio audience that's pliable. No, I said that that's the way they talk about people. I don't refer to people as that. But there you go. Thoughts on Burkina Faso? Sure. Let's talk about it. When Prigozhin was killed in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, killed by who knows who, half of his troops, the Wagner group, didn't go to Belarus. They went to Africa because they wanted to cut off Europe's supply line for energy. Europe was quietly trying to go nuclear, more and more nuclear power. And they realized that they get most of their uranium from West Africa, from Burkina Faso, from Niger, from all these other places. And so Russia decided to strike at France, Germany, and the rest of their pipeline for natural resources. And even though these individuals have said, wait a minute, hold on. What do you think the end result was going to be? Are you working on any new tracks? Yeah. Are cartels infiltrating the government and cutting deals with South America? I'm afraid you're about 70 years too late with that one. Cartels have consistently wanted authoritarian regimes in power. And most cartels have come to power because they promised to help against communists. That's true. Look at the Contras in Nicaragua. These people were, we're anti-communist fighters. We're fighting against... No, I'm sorry. You people were more interested in selling cocaine than you were in fighting for freedom. You were making a killing down there. So the truth is that a lot of these cartels exist because of the right wing, because they gave them cover, because they gave them support in exchange for standing against anything that resembled a leftist government. Look at Peru. That's a perfect example, When Fujimori came to power and the right-wing Peruvians that love him, I'm sorry that you're confused. I'm sorry that you've been fed a pack of lies. There's nothing I can necessarily do within this live to correct the lies that you've been told over the years. But let's get back to the story. Fujimori had two problems when he came to power. He had a plethora of left-wing movements that were dedicated to overthrowing the government. And he had a gang of cartels that were at war with each other over Peru's cocaine trade, which, by the way, eclipses Colombia's. Peru is the largest producer of cocaine on the fucking planet, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? The planet. Do you know why? Unlike Colombians, Peruvians have never had beef with Mexicans. Ever. You know why? Because we never needed nothing from Mexico. The Peruvian cartels never needed to have beef with Mexicans because there was no conflict. Their moving agent wasn't Mexico. They rarely moved their drugs through there. The Peruvian cartels always had to deal with the cartel of the United States, not the Mexican cartel, right? The Mexican cartel had to deal with American cartels to move drugs in. Many of those cartels were functioning under the protection of this government. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's true. We learned that in the Iran-Contra scandal. For the young people that are watching this show, Iran-Contra scandal. Please Google it if Zuckerberg hasn't edited the caption already, you know? So there's nothing fictitious we're saying here. The question is, do you think that killing all those cartel people will stop young white Americans from taking drugs? Because if black or brown people die of an overdose, they typically blame us. Oh, well, you shouldn't have been on crack. You people don't work hard. And all right, but when little Jimmy dies of a heroin overdose, all of a sudden it's somebody in Mexico's fault. Make it make sense for me. Is drug addiction a disease? Because it sure is when your people get affected, right? Or is drug addiction a moral failing, which is what we get when our people are affected? I'm telling you something. Ambushing a bunch of cartel members when they're leaving a nightclub is not going to stop people from taking drugs in this country. This country spends about $1.2 trillion a year getting high. You think getting them out of the way is going to stop that? No, they don't want to stop it. They want to control it. Again, what did I tell you about the United States? They don't want to destroy you. That's the Israeli way of thinking. They want to destroy Palestinians, destroy their identity, because their identity is a threat to who they are. They remind them it's not really your land. Hardly any of you are really from here. And that's the trick that a lot of Zionists play. What are you saying? You're saying we're not from here. Oh, some of you are from here, but you, my friend, are Ashkenazi. And by the way, there's none of your people in the Bible. Every Hebrew in the Bible is darker than me, bro. Don't be mad at me. That's not anti-Semitic to say? You know who taught me that? A rabbi. I never forget this. My friend was being teased at school because he's darker than me, but he's Jewish. And people said, oh, we don't think you're really Jewish. And I remember he went to talk to his rabbi. And the rabbi said to him, don't let them make fun of you. Because our people looked like you for 1,000 years before the first of us looked like me. And that's true. But again, anytime you stand up for Gaza or something else, that's the automatic label they want to throw on you. Because they never want to have a discussion about the actual facts. Right? It always has to be a personal attack. Much like a fourth-rate lawyer, the testimony is damaging. So we have to attack the person who's giving the testimony. There you go. Someone wrote thoughts on hummus. It's delicious. If it's done right. Will I be back on Joe Rogan's podcast? Um, yeah, I'm sure whenever he has time. I look, dude. I'm one of these people that's never had an issue with individuals. When other people were saying he was a racist, I was like, that's not my experience with him. I never shitted on that dude, so I don't know why people think that like we don't like each other or something. What? He just retweeted some shit of mine the other day. Like, what are you talking about? What country got the best ceviche? I'm not even touching that one. You guys can fight on your own. She said, ew, I'm Persian, and I think hummus is gross. God bless your heart. I don't agree with you. And I'm sure there's some Persian stuff that you eat that I wouldn't like. But then again, there's a lot of Persian food that I really love. I went to a Persian restaurant maybe about a month ago. Delicious. Someone wrote, I have a question. Were your songs based on real events? A lot of them were. Listen, I always tell people, Dance with the Devil, I can show people the building where that happened. I just wasn't on the roof. Look, I'm going to say that again. I can take you to the building. Maybe I should do this, right? I should have a little New York City tour. Motherfuckers come to New York. They want to go around for 4 hours. Someone wrote, interview or a podcast with Rage Against the Machine. Yeah, big shout out to Rage. Were people mad at them or something? Why would you think I don't rock with them? What did they do that made people so angry? This is what I'm confused. Was it the COVID thing? They had a concert and you couldn't come unless you had the jab. Let me let me just break something down. That's not them. That's the venue. Yeah. Someone wrote, will you ever come to Toronto? I'm going to try. I'm going to come there just for you. Will you ever connect the stash? Yeah, it does on the off season. The stash connects. Yes. We went over deportations and everything, Gaza and all that in the very beginning of the live. So I have a show at SOB's February 19th in New York. Then I have another one March 1st in Richmond, Virginia. And then I have a second one March 2nd in Baltimore, Maryland. And then I'm going to the West Coast again. So I'll be in LA, OC, Long Beach, Fresno, the Bay Area, and several other places. Hopefully I'll get to Colorado and Seattle too. Yeah, I'm going to get out of here. I'll definitely save this live so people can watch it back. Montreal is better than Toronto. Je ne sais quoi, mon ami. Oh, man. He said, accept my request, bro, to get these stream numbers up. I like you, man. You're a funny dude. I'm not going to make fun of your uncle anymore. I never did. It's all love. Anyway, I love you guys. Tell me where you're from. I give you a shout out. You heard me yawning. It's time for sleep. Shout out to Dubai. Shout out to London. Shout out to Australia. Shout out to Winnipeg. Someone wrote Montreal. Long Beach, California. DJ Marcus, Toronto. Los Angeles. There you go. San Luis Obispo. Oh, man, I missed that place. El Salvador. Montana. Shout to Bangladesh is in the building. Inland Empire. Nuevo Mexico. Eden, PA, right outside of Philly. East Los. Phoenix, DC. Occupied Aboriginal land. Paiute Reservation, my brother. Brooklyn is in the building. Oh, I love you too, Farah. Big shout out to Santa Ana. And, oh, someone checking in from China and Michoacan. Love you guys. Be good. Peace.